to moderate the session.
Okay, thank you, Kataoka-san. So, good afternoon all. Let me warmly welcome all of you to the segment 1 of the high-level seminar 2020. So as Kataoka-san mentioned, my name is Kumara. I'm from IGS. So I'm so happy to be a moderator today in this session. So I hope that all of you are doing well during this pandemic period, and we are ready to start this session, which is focused on progress of the SDG at local level. As you know, the role of cities, local leadership, local partnership, local initiatives, all are getting popular and widely recognized these days in achieving SDGs and the climate change agreements. At the same time, we acknowledge the importance of the local leadership and local actions to reduce environmental pollution, including marine pollution. So the global data shows us that more than 80% of the marine plastic comes from the land base because of mismanagement of the plastic waste at city levels. So I think today we have very knowledgeable team of speakers representing national and local governments, international agencies, and research institutes who want to share their works and experiences on this subject with us. But problem with me now is how to control the time, because I know that they have a lot of things to say, but I kindly ask our speakers to make your speech limit to 7 minutes, giving us a little bit time to ask a couple of questions from the audience at the end of the presentations. So without not taking much time, so I would like to introduce our first speaker. So he is Mr. Pak Sokawat, Deputy Director General, General Directorate of Environmental Protection from the Ministry of Environment, Cambodia. So Mr. Pak, the floor yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prima. And I would like to do my presentation. So that's a great treat. Can you help me to show up my presentation? In Cambodia, we have implementation the frontrunner city. There is the Cape city, Posat city, and Kampot city. Next slide, please. So why we select Cape is the frontrunner city? We would like to balance the economic development with the sustainable city for current and future generation. And we would like to increase green space and promote circular economy in Cambodia. Next slide, please. In order to fight the implementation of the frontrunner city in Cambodia, so that each city have been established the steering committee that chaired by the provincial governor. And the provincial governor and as well as the committee will be monthly meeting to identify the progress activity and identify the next step for the sustainable project implementation. Next slide, please. In Cape Province, we have been upgrading the environmental center and gardening. So the village, we select location for upgrading the garden and green space, as well as the solar lighting installation, and as well as the upgrade of environmental center for tourists in the seaside province. Next slide, please. As you see the picture, this one is the upgrading environmental center. Environmental center, so that the picture on the left hand side is the before upgrading, and on the right hand side, this environmental center is the during upgrading. Next slide, please. This one is the after upgrading. So the whole center has been upgraded, equipped with the solar LED light and air conditioner, and upgraded restroom and water system, and also can use at the meeting room or maybe small event, because the center is can be loaded only 40 people. Next slide, please. As you see, there are 600 gardening renovation at the road 33A with solar lighting to say before renovation and after renovation, so that all this you see it, and we put the banner for the IHS and for front runner city modeling as the IHS support for the front runner city in Cape Province. Next slide, please. We have some also public awareness in some other the 3 cities, so that at school student, teacher on plastic waste management and at Bundunia on Sense of Chatrayawong. Next slide, please. Also, we have been like support for 20,000 liter of rainwater collection storage, that for using for the student and teacher at the Chatrayawong High School in Cape Province. Next slide, please. Actually, we have a vision and strategic for the Cape City. The fourth one, city for tourism, for long stay with the good environment and healthy. And for second one is to become a smart, clean, and green city to compete with the Asian seaside city for tourist attraction. And number 3, ecotourist city, natural park, island with the good environment. Because Cape Province is located at the seaside city, so that Cape City has been like we have national park at the center of the Cape City, and we have surrounded by island that very attractive for the tourists can be stay at the island. And city we would like to be like the balance with development and conservation, that and like regional integration. So that we also we have like socio-economic tourist infrastructure, we strengthening the law enforcement, we strengthening the hospitality service and outreach, and land use master plan and land use plan, etc. for the cut up the vision and strategic for Cape City in this place. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this one my last and presentation. Thank you very much. So that please participate with us for our city clean and green, and as well as to for the regional network, as well as in the global country in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Pak, for your presentation about the local SDG activities at city level under the Front Runner City programs in Cambodia. So it gives importance of having vision and strategic actions at city level. So then let me introduce our next speaker, Mrs. Murakami Mieko, Director of the Business Promotion Division of the ASEAN Center for Low Carbon City, Kitakyushu. So Kitakyushu City is very famous for its environmental activities. We would like to hear from Mrs. Murakami for your experience. So please.
គេឲ្យ5នាទីដល់7នាទីមុំហ្នឹងនៅសល់10សេកុងកាលណាខ្ញុំចប់គេបង្ហាញថែម10សេកុងសល់10សេកុงនេះថែមកាលណា5នាទីគេដាក់តើងមួយបាត់ហើយ
北九州市の村上と申します。本日はどうぞよろしく。
I am Murakami from Kitakyushu City. Nice to see you all. First of all, I would like to briefly introduce Kitakyushu City. Kitakyushu City has long been a gateway for Asia. It has a long history. On the other hand, since 20th century, that has also been developing as an industrial city and faced enormous pollution issues. And because of that, the residents and private sectors, administration, and also the researchers work together to overcome this issue. And these are the photos. In 1960s, you can see that there was a lot of smoke billowing out. And the picture below is Dokai Bay. It's a sea, but it was also suffering from severe pollution. But with the partnership of the industry, local government, and academy, we've been able to regain blue sky and beautiful sea. Now, later, Kitakyushu City began cooperation with other Asian cities to solve the pollution issues by utilizing such technologies. One thing is that we have Kitakyushu Eco Town, and this is to form a circular economy. And this is the biggest recycling complex in Japan. Now, when you think about the recycling, you may think that it's very costly. However, we made an investment worth 80 billion yen and have created the employment for 1,300 people. And also, this is also an industrial tourist place where it's visited by more than 100,000 people a year. And also, besides this, we are also working on energy issue. This is the Regional Energy Hub Promotion project. We have the Eco Town, and it is in the same site. And we are trying to build a hub for energy. And it's because in 2011, we had this great East Japan earthquake, and Japan underwent tight demand of and supply of electricity. And that was the catalyst. And in order to realize low carbon, stable energy supply, we are trying to install the offshore windmill as well as the high efficiency thermal power generation. And also, we want to utilize the smart community program and try to launch the regional energy company. Now, Kitakyushu, just as you can see in the Eco Town, we are trying to create the circular economy and also been promoting environmental policies. And also, we are promoting the renewable energy and also trying to create a new industry out of that. This offshore windmill, we are trying to create this. And also, we are trying to create a hub for this offshore wind power. And also, the citizens, they're utilizing the experience of having overcome the pollution. And this is the Uomachi shopping street. And utilizing the experience, they are creating a SDGs shopping street. They have installed the roof solar power place and also utilizing LED. And also utilizing this experience, we have created a Kitakyushu Asian Center for Low Carbon Society to contribute to the low carbon society. And this opened in June 2010. So we are celebrating the 10th year. So far, 141 projects have been promoted, together with 56 cities in Asia, and also with 103 Japanese companies. Specifically, in promoting the projects, we are utilizing the city-to-city cooperation. For example, in Indonesia, we are talking with Surabaya or Haiphong City in Vietnam, in Phnom Penh with Cambodia, and Davao, Philippines. We are sister cities, so we're trying to work on the long-term measures. Now, I'd like to briefly explain about our project in Davao, in Philippines. Davao in 2017, we contracted a strategic partnership. And we are working together on the waste management issue. And specifically, most of the waste go to the final disposal center. And we have introduced the waste power generation, so we can manage and reduce all the waste in a very hygienic manner, and also can work on the shortage of the electricity. Right now, because of the COVID-19 seen worldwide, but a very sanitary management of the waste is very important for that matter as well. And also, waste cannot be just burned by collecting them, but the important thing is that we promote the recycling of that. So Kitakyushu City is cooperating to have a system of sorting the combustible, the waste in place. And this is in the one barangay in the Philippines. And we have created the sorting, well, it's a picture or diagram that explains about the sorting of the garbage created with the Filipino people. So I think this is really easy for ordinary people to understand about the scheme. And also, we are working together with IGES to realize the low carbon society in Davao. Now, WTE, other than that, we have this low carbon plan, and we are promoting this Davao. So we can have the results not just in Davao, but also in the entire Philippines and also in the entire Asia. That is all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Murakami-san, for sharing with us the experience of Kitakyushu City. I hope that most of our participants at least hear of this case study before the presentation. But always Kitakyushu give very good experience for the others. So I think especially for the building partnership with the key stakeholders at the local level and the local material circulation within the city, I learned it's a good idea for localizing SDGs. So thank you very much again for your presentation. So then let me go to our next speaker. So I would like to warmly invite Mr. Nurli Tahar, Director of Solid Waste Management, Ministry of Environment and Forestry, Indonesia. Please make your presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Prekemra. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the Ministry of the Environment Japan, the Department of Natural Resources and Environment, the Philippines, the ASEAN Working Group on Environmentally Sustainable Cities, and the ASEAN Secretariat for organizing this seminar. Also, thank you for inviting me as one of the speakers for this thematic session. It is such an honor to be invited to speak to you all here today. Although we cannot gather in Manila because of this pandemic, I hope this meeting will be effective and productive and resulted in this beneficial outcome as expected. Please, my presentation put on the screen. On this opportunity, I would like to talk about waste management and 3Rs policy and practice in Indonesia. Next, please, slide. Next slide, please. Yep. The tables show the target of solid waste management at national level that has to be achieved until the year 2025. divided into two main activities in solid waste management: waste reduction and waste handling. This target is stipulated in the Presidential Regulation number 97, year 2017, regarding national policy and strategy on solid waste management. Based on those figures, Indonesia has set an ambitious target to reduce waste from its source by 30% and handle waste properly by 70% in 2025. So it is expected that we will be able to manage 100% our waste by 2025. Next, please. Yes, on this slide, we can see the ambitious target of the National Solid Waste Management, that is 30% reduction and 70% properly handling of waste by 2025. This target also applies to plastic waste. Indicators have been set up to measure the achievement of each target. So if we can manage our solid waste 100% in 2025 by reducing its source and handling it properly at land base, we do believe that we can reduce marine plastic 70% in 2025. Next. This is our condition right now. We can see on this slide that in 2019, after 2 years since the presidential decree of the National Policy and Strategy on Solid Waste Management entry into force, Indonesia managed to slightly increase the waste reduction rate more than 3 times compared to that 2018. It means is the public participation is very good contribution for the waste reduction. Next. Next slide. Yeah. Waste management approach. There are 3 main approaches that we have been using in our effort to resolve waste problem in Indonesia simultaneously. First approach, we call the less waste or eco-living. Reducing solid waste generation is still our main concern. Hence, waste minimization is a necessary step. We have been doing a lot of public campaign as well as setting up regulation and guidelines to promote source reduction. We encourage societies, private and government sector to do waste prevention by performing 3 R's practice. People have been starting to sort out their waste. Local government begin to restrict single-use plastic in their respective province or city, so that people are forced to use reusable goods. More companies are now handling their post-consumer product in a more responsible way. These are a few examples of our achievement, but we do realize that it is still a hard challenge to apply this practice nationwide. Next slide. Yeah, this is a list of local government who have published the single-use plastic restriction regulation. Until now, there are 2 provinces and 37 cities regencies that have published the single-use plastic restriction regulation. The government provide incentive for some cities that already have and apply this kind of regulation. We expect more local government will follow this move. Next slide. The second approach, circular economy. Alongside the prevention and recycling of waste, another important pillar of our waste management approach is treating waste as valuable resource By doing this, it is expected that we reduce the cost of waste management and at the same time and protect our environment. As we bring the generated waste back into life cycle, meaning that more material can be kept in the circle of production and consumption. Therefore, recycling plays an important role in circular economy concept. Recycling is a precondition for the circular economy. Next slide. Yeah, Waste Bank play an important role in Indonesia. Waste management model in collecting segregated recyclable waste material, providing a better quality of recyclable for recycling industries. Waste Bank is cultural movement in Indonesia as it changed the public paradigm from something waste into money, turn waste into blessing. Next slide. Yeah, this is when people realize that they can generate money from waste. Waste Bank establishment has become massive movement. Up till now, the number of Waste Bank continue to soar. As you can see, by 2020, there are 11,000 more Waste Bank across in Indonesia. Next.
Mr. Tahar, I'm sorry to inform. Can you summarize the presentation because time is over, please?
Yeah. The last slide, I think. Next. Yeah. Back. Yeah. Yeah. The last slide, the key performance indicator in Indonesia 2025. The government has set a target to improve the KPI by 2025 with a target of achieving 100% waste management, reducing plastic waste into the sea. The index of people and awareness in solid waste management has to fall to 0.3%. Of people who perform sorting waste into increase to 50%, the recycling rate has to increase to 50%, and cities that carry out waste management into electricity or waste to electricity, as many as 12 cities. Also, we set target in 2025, there will be 17 provinces and 257 cities in Indonesia that apply single-use plastic restriction. I think that is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tahar, for your presentation. I'm sorry for the time issue, but I would like to ask the coming speakers also keep your presentation strict to 7 minutes. But it's very important presentation, give us the importance of at national level, how the target setting and also incentive and monitoring system to be set to progress, localize the activities with the cities. So thank you very much. So then let me invite Mr. Nguyen Huy Hong. He is a Director of Planning and Finance Department of Vietnam Administration of Seas and Islands. So Mr. Nguyen, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me for this seminar. I put my presentation on. Do you see it? Okay. My presentation is on the progress of SDG at local level of Vietnam. In this, I would like to share with you 3 main contents. The first one, the National Action Plan on Marine Plastic Debris Management of the country. And the second thing is a forerunner city program in Haiphong City. And the third one is initial outcome of FC program in Haiphong. As you know that the National Action Plan of Vietnam to 2030 agenda for SDG set out in 2017, in which 17 SDG goals are set out with 115 specific targets. For the goal 14 focuses on life below water with target on reduction of waste into the sea, management of marine plastic debris. Very important, last year, December 2019, Prime Minister issued Decision 1746, approving the National Action Plan on marine plastic waste management through 2030. The objective of this National Action Plan is to implement Vietnam initiative and international commitment to address plastic waste issue with a focus on marine plastic debris, contribute to successful implementation of national strategy on integrated management of solid waste by 2025 with a vision through 2050s. Aligned with the circular economy approach, contribute to the recovery, recycling, and reuse of plastic waste in Vietnam. Improve awarenesses, behavior, and habit regarding the use of single-use plastic product and plastic bag at the community and society level. We also put out some tasks and solutions in this very important National Action Plan. So first one is to educate and change behavior pertaining to plastic and marine plastic litter, collection, classification, storage, transfer, and processing of plastic waste from coastal and ocean-based activities. This is, I have to say, is very important because most of the plastic waste are now thrown directly from the coast to the ocean. The third one is control plastic litter sources. And fourth one is international cooperation, which is what we are doing right now here. And the fifth one, consistent and effective investigation, survey, review, research, and formulation of mechanism from marine plastic litter management. And here we choose Haiphong as a front-runner city in this program. For those who have never been to Vietnam, or particularly in Haiphong, you see the star, which is a city along the beach. This very important economic hub of Vietnam in the north. Haiphong started a new development strategy to strive to be a modern, smart, and sustainable industrial city by 2030. And this is very important base for us to put this program into practice in Haiphong. Being a key coastal city and transport hub of the country, Haiphong relies very much on the sea and management of marine plastic waste. It's important to ensure the smooth transportation of goods as well as people to preserve natural resources for tourism and culture. The program, the Frontrunner City program, contributes to resolve the conflict interest between economic growth and sustainable development of the city, and implementation of this process is further supported by related action and plans issued by the city, as explained for this later on when you see what you did in Haiphong City. Objective of the program in Haiphong is to raise the people awarenesses of problem plastic waste and ways to manage. The audience we are target including government officials, businesses, and households. To make sure the people understanding of their responsibility in marine waste management for plastic waste dumped into the sea must be reduced and prevented. We target not only businesses but also tourists who are actually travel a lot to Haiphong City, and spillover effect of the project are acknowledged in different groups of people and location within Haiphong. We focus on three main activities in Haiphong. The first thing, we did a study to see how the plastic waste management in Haiphong is at the moment. And then we work with local government in Haiphong City to develop action plan. And very luckily, the action plan is promulgated and issued in March 19, 2020. This is a very fundamental regulation for the Haiphong City to implement this program. Some targets stated in the action plan very important, reducing 75% marine plastic waste. 100% of waste from fishery tool must be collected. 100% of tourist sites stop using single-use plastic product and persistent plastic bags. 100% marine protected area have no plastic waste. Yeah, some picture we did last year in Halong Bay and with the banner local market EC conference in Katba Islands. And result, we are very happy to gain some very initial result, including activities under the program, the awarenesses of the public and the local authority, and the city developed marine plastic action plan. And the action plan are now actually coming not only at the local government, but also for businesses and tourists. We found that there are three main successful factors we need to focus. The first, to understand the localities and localize the project goal. The second is design activity must be feasible. And third is to choose the right leading agency we work with. Thank you. And I know that the time is up, so I stop my presentation here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Mr. Nagyo, for keeping the time and also sharing with us your national initiative in the action plan for marine plastic and the HIFON case study. It is very interesting. So then I would like to invite our next speaker, Mr. Iwasaki Fusanori. He is the Executive Assistant to the President of the Economic Research Institute for ASEAN and East Asia. We call it is AREA, I think located in Jakarta, Indonesia. So Mr. Iwasaki, please make your presentation.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Perfect.
Thank you very much. So let's get started my presentation. So very good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fusanori Iwasaki from AREA. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to present the activities of the Regional Knowledge Center on Marine Plastic Debris, or RKC MPD. Okay, first of all, let me briefly explain the AREA. AREA is an international organization established by the Agreement of East Asia Summit in 2007 to provide economic research and policy analysis to the ASEAN and the East Asia Summit for the ASEAN community building process. So every year of the East Asia Summit statement, our readers encourage AREA to continue providing support for the chair of the ASEAN Summit and East Asia Summit. So AREA conducts a wide range of research under the three pillars of our research field: deepening economic integration, narrowing the development gaps, and achieving the sustainable development. The environmental related research, such as waste management, circular economy, as well as the issue of marine plastic debris, is also related to these three pillars. So since its inception, we have conducted several researches which related to the environmental issue, such as 3R policies, circular economy and Industry 4.0, and regional waste management, especially focusing on the ASEAN and East Asia Summit region. So therefore, raising the global concerns of the marine plastic debris and the effort of doing research on waste management in ASEAN region have resulted in establishing the RKC MPD under the ASEAN Platform framework on October last year, with a great support from the Japanese government. This slide shows that the basic explanation of what we do for combating marine plastic debris in this region. So AREA is a secretariat of the Knowledge Center, which encourages the correction and analysis of information, sharing knowledges and good practices in the region, and awareness raising through seminars and capacity building. In the chair statement of the 22nd ASEAN Plus 3 Summit last year also welcomed the establishment of the Knowledge Center. And this is the image of the front page of our website. And this is the structure of our website. The main part of website is the select section of good practices. We already developed the national framework of tackling marine plastic debris and the government initiative. So we will further develop the scientific knowledge as well as the good environmental technologies part. National framework part consists of the ministries and the coordination mechanism, national laws and regulation, action plans and roadmaps, and local regulation, as well as the international agreements. So let me briefly touch upon today's discussion topic on the SDG at the local level. The marine issues are almost listed under the number of 14 of the SDG. But in order to cope with this problem, we need to consider the relationship with other goals. And the multi-stakeholders partnership is one of the keys to cope with this problem. The research team of our Knowledge Center tried to analyze the local partnership for marine debris. Although this issue is regarded as a global environmental problem, we need to strengthen the partnership both globally and locally to accomplish the leave no one behind, especially for the informal sector of waste collections. Therefore, RKC MPD would also like to contribute to the research and capacity development on the policy formation of waste management and marine debris, both regional and local level. We also target to enhance the networking of relevant environmental institutions in the region to encourage the collaboration activities. This is a summary of the first year activities. We also presented the various international fora to raise awareness and networking for this issue. One of the highlights is the joint dialogue with ASEAN Interparliamentary Assembly, or IPA. AREA and IPA conducted the dialogue on waste management under the pandemic of COVID-19. The RKC MPD encouraged the parliamentarians of the ASEAN how to keep strength the activities of waste management by mitigating the risk of COVID-19 through lively discussion. So let me skip this slide. And before I close, I'd like to highlight the further progress. First, enriching the website, especially for the sharing good practices of the environmental technology in the region. Second, further enhancing international collaboration. And third, organizing workshops and webinars for both practitioners and academia. So please visit our website. We are very welcome to get direct inputs from ASEAN Plus 3 member countries. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Iwasaki, for sharing with us your new initiative of the Regional Knowledge Center of Marine Plastic Debris. I think this is very welcome at this moment because the importance of building capacities and networking within the cities and the governments, national governments, to address the marine plastic debris. So thank you very much for sharing your experience and the new initiative. So then let me invite, we are very happy to have Mr. Omar Siddiqui, Economic Affairs Officer, Environment and Development Division of the UN ESCAP, to share their activities in SDG and marine plastic with Mio Hayashi from IGS. So please make your presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Kumara. I'm just loading my presentation here, but I really would like to thank all of the excellencies and delegates today for inviting ESCAP to present with our partners at IGES for this important topic on progress of the SDGs at the local level. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see you.
Wonderful. So essentially the presentation has two parts. I will be looking at the issue of SDG localization and specifically the latest trends around ocean-bound plastic waste from land-based areas, particularly cities. And then I will pass it over to my colleague, Ms. Miho Hayashi, who will give you a deep dive into a particular partnership that ESCAP has initiated this year with IGES on addressing plastic waste pollution from cities in Southeast Asia and ASEAN. Before we go into the topic of plastic waste, though, I wanted to give everyone an update in terms of where we stand in terms of the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals in Southeast Asia and ASEAN. This is a really important slide. I'd like to show you the progress that's been made since 2000 with regard to each of the 17 SDGs in Asia Pacific. We received this data from national statistical organizations of countries. And really, I wish we had better news to share, but as of 2019, so this is even before COVID-19, the only goal that will be met based on target 4 is on quality education by 2030. So you'll see the blue bars need to reach the 2019 black bar in the center in order for the rate of progress to be sufficient to meet 2030. What is more alarming, however, is that we see a number of regressions in sustainable development goals, particularly the environmental related goals, and well as the goals around reduced inequalities, SDG 10, as well as SDG 16 on peace, justice, and strong institutions. We do have to take this data with a grain of salt, however, because you'll see the bars that have sort of the stripes through them diagonally means that really we don't have a lot of data to make the claim strong enough for that. But I think this is still a call for us to increase acceleration at the regional level in ASEAN to achieve the SDGs. And why is it important to look at cities as entry points for all of the SDGs? Because from SDG 11 perspective, you can address issues around infrastructure, housing, and basic services, that is SDG 6, 9, and 7, partnerships and institutions, that's 16 and 17, a range of different SDGs around equity and equality, around inclusive cities takes you to progress on SDGs 8, 10, 3, 1, 5, 2, and 4, but also particularly important for this session around environmental resources and resilience, particularly marine litter. And you're looking at SDGs 14 and 12, but also things like climate action, where we're looking at addressing short-lived climate pollutants. But at the same time, city level action is critical to deliver against most of the SDGs. And there's been estimates that up to 65% of the SDG targets have to be met in or by local areas. So what is this term localizing? We've been throwing it around a lot, but I wanted to give some information in terms of how we see localizing the SDGs. And it is not a top-down process, but means taking into account the subnational context, the challenges and opportunities. And it's a process that really calls for co-creating solutions for meaningful partnership, resulting in a more inclusive and needs-driven outcome to leave no one behind. It's a way of achieving the SDGs through this bottom-up action, as I mentioned, and provides a really useful framework to help guide local development policy. But it also places these local governments and communities as catalysts of change to achieve global goals, which is something that we did not have under the MDG framework. I think a really important part is about aligning local goals, targets, and indicators to national and global frameworks, including identifying baselines and targets, and then integrating those into local plans and action. One really important issue that I would like to leave with you in terms of localizing SDGs is that it's very important that we look at the means of implementation for action. So what are some of these? Finance, capacity development, inclusive and participatory processes, strengthening the evidence base, and thinking in more integrated ways, which is really a hallmark of the SDG framework. particularly looking at finance. I mean, I mentioned before that there's been some estimates that about 65% of the SDGs need to be met in cities, but this is based on the principle of subsidiarity. And is that principle matched with the requisite financial resources that local governments need to actually achieve that 65% of the SDG targets? That's a question that we still have about how national governments can create an enabling environment for local authorities to really be the local champions for implementation and localization of the SDGs. I want to now switch quickly over to the issue of plastic. And as I mentioned earlier to you, that there is really much acceleration that needs to be happened in this area. 49.3% of the global plastic is produced in Asia Pacific. 38% of that global plastic is also consumed in Asia Pacific, and a large amount, about 9.6% of total mismanaged plastic waste is coming from the top 6 polluting countries in Asia Pacific. Annually, rivers dump from between 470,000 to 2.75 million metric tons of plastic into the seas. Most river plastic that is ocean bound originates from Asia, which is 86% of the global total. This is only followed by Africa at 7.8% and Latin America at 4.8%. So I want to also call your attention to the figure on the right-hand side of the screen, because this is an important scenario. And it shows the evolution of plastic materials in the ocean since 1950 and projections towards 2050 in what may become, I hope it's not true, a century of plastics. It shows that the trajectory of future global accumulation according to 3 emission scenarios. And please note that these figures don't include micro or nanoplastics. So scenario A, the red line, represents a business as usual approach. Sorry, I'm unmuted now. So scenario A, which is the red line, looks at emissions growth to 2050. And this is the business as usual approach towards 2050, which is aligned with historical plastic production rates. Scenario B, which is the blue line, represents stagnation, and the blue line assumes emission rates stay the same in 2020. And scenario C, which is the transformative action, which we're all working collectively towards, is the green line, which represents our goal in closing the loop project, which my colleague Miho will speak about. And that plots a scenario in which the plastic emissions stop in 2020. So what this really tells us is that without these transformative actions, the amount of plastic debris could triple in the next 3 decades, as portrayed in scenario A. So we're hoping that 2020 is a game changer for strategic actions and policies to address this crisis. And how do we go about this at the regional level? So we really we need to look at the local implementation of the international agreements. And my colleague from area mentioned a number of those, such as the Asean framework on action on marine debris, as well as national policies. And the colleague from the ministry in Indonesia also talked about their ambitious national policies to address marine pollution. But there needs to be specific provisions in these national and international agreements to strengthen multi-level governance, and particularly the role of state and local authorities. River systems coursing through several Asian cities contribute to much of the debris dumped in the ocean. So really a focus on river basins and that source to sea approach is very important for looking at leakage to ocean-bound plastic. Finally, municipal solid waste management systems are vitally important to encourage that shift that we heard about from the other speakers on circular waste. And that regional cooperation, including multi-stakeholder dialogue, scaling up city-to-city initiatives, and exchanging data, information, and good practices are very important to really address this issue around the SDGs with respect to marine plastics. So I'll leave it there and hand it over to my colleague, Ms. Miho Hayashi. Miho, over to you.
Thank you, Omar. As you mentioned, so from here, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the Closing the Loop project. So this project has basically the 2 objectives. Cities in Asean countries use innovation, smart technology to monitor. Basically, to monitor the good plastic waste management. And in the end, we are also going to develop the city plan, action plan, and then with the investment strategies to apply the circular economy. So we can see from Omar's presentation that we Asian countries are responsible for the big amount of plastic waste. So we selected the 4 cities from 4 countries as like a pilot project. So we selected Da Nang City from Vietnam, Surabaya from Indonesia, Kuala Lumpur from Malaysia, and Nakhon Si Thammarat from Thailand. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the key agencies who are strongly involved in the project. Next slide, please. So at national level, basically in 4 countries, a Ministry of Environment are in charge of the environmental regulations in terms of solid waste management. The Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia, not only the Ministry of Environment and Water, but the Ministry of Housing and Local Government also in charge of the solid waste management, because there is the agency called SWCO that is enforcing the implementation of solid waste management. At local government, there are, in some countries, there is one department who is in charge of the waste management, but in some other countries, there are 2 agencies, 2 departments that are in charge of. The first one is in charge of the regulations and monitoring, and the other one is operating from collection, transportation, and even the management of landfill. So we have also focal points in each city.
Hassan, sorry to disturb you. So please.
We have so many, not so many. Okay, just quickly. And then we have also project advisory committee. We hold the quarterly basis committee meeting, and we share the progress and also project overview with them. Next, please. So tangible outcome, we have 3: baseline status reports, digital mapping tools, and the city action plans. So I'm going to talk about a little bit in the next slides. Next slide, please. So in order to develop the baseline report, we use a plastic pollution calculator that is developed by the Leeds University and also owned by ISWA. And that calculator allows us to identify the waste generation, plastic waste generation, then how much of them goes to the environment, how much goes is collected, how much goes the waterways, and how much are burned as well. And we have been collecting the data, a very comprehensive data to run the PPC tool. In addition to that, we also analyzing the governance aspects from the points of policy and the regulation at both national and local levels, institutional capacity, stakeholders, and financial sustainability and digital readiness of the city. And then we are going to start also the digital tool development, and they are going to identify the plastic waste hotspots so that this result can be integrated in the action plan. We will analyze all these aspects in order to develop the city action plan. Next slide. So far, we have found to use the PPC tool, even though the tool itself is very comprehensive and it will give us a very accurate result. However, we have to have the very detailed data in place. And then in reality, most cities or even smaller units, which is districts, do not have such detailed data. In that case, we have to estimate the figure to get the result.
So
and
sorry,
then
you have only 1 minute to
okay. Of course, in order to have the accurate data, it's always better to have take a field survey, but that requires time and money. That is a little bit constrained. And then sometimes official data is considered as official, so we have to validate, but sometimes they are not reliable, or so that also kind of a limitation of this tool. So governance aspects, we analyze them, and then as we heard from the Ministry of Indonesia or Vietnam and national government level, they have already cleared policy in terms of the marine litter pollution or reduction of the waste, plastic waste, or recovery, recycling of those things. However, at the city level, they still don't have such policy. So we may have to come up with such policy in this project. And then from now, we will analyze all these data, and then we are going to compile the data and then organize the initial workshop to validate the data information collected. And then we will come up with the action plan by consulting with the several stakeholders who are involved in the solid waste management, plastic management in particular. And then lastly, we will organize the action plan workshop to validate the information and for finalization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, speaker, so I will quickly invite the Deputy Mayor of Nakhon Si Thammarat City to share briefly what the city will doing with this project. So please, Deputy Mayor, for you, the floor. So, Deputy Mayor, please.
First of all, we would like to thank the organizer for inviting the Nakhon Si Thammarat City municipality to speak at the important event. Our president has been extended to UNS and IGES. You keep partner for enabling Nakhon Si Thammarat City municipality in the coast the Loop project. Due to the economic growth, Nakhon Si Thammarat City municipality has accumulated over 1.13 million tonnes of sewage without people from management, making Nakhon Si Thammarat the country #1 point is accumulated sewage. This issue has created serious concern for local people about their health and well-being for many years. Following the nation policy, we have implemented the cluster system which has been divided into 6 zones and includes local authority organization from all city. We have been working together to develop service management plan aimed to make our city more sustainable. For Nakhon Si Thammarat City municipality, we aim as properly disposing the accumulated sewage and excess waste through waste to RDP by 2035. In addition, we have also implemented the low carbon school program within 10 schools under the S committee. While it may be different to change the mindset and behavior of your generation now, we have determined to increase quality of life and educate young generation accessibility though at school to understand about 3R activity. What makes our municipality school different from other, and the fact that not only we focus on the contents theory which have been through everywhere, but we also focus more on how to push those contents lesson into practice. We have implemented many compress and students at school and teach them to be more disciplined and their one behavior to be in line and sustainable Development Goal. Last but not least, among your many of future plans, we believe the following environment education curriculum in the key and one of the inspiration element then we can possibly inspect behavior of young people and increase their knowledge of proper service management. We believe if we can successfully implement this in which health zone, the zone waste management program in the future. Therefore, strong partnership from organizations such UN ESCAP and IJEC are important and can support us to reach our goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for sharing your experience in Nakhon Sitamrat City. So actually we are over the time. So I hope that this session is, again, we discuss the importance of the cities and local actions to achieve SDGs and the marine plastic issues. So before closing the sessions, I want to thank again for all speakers. So for sharing your valuable thoughts and inputs to the sessions. As the organizer said, all the presentations will be uploaded, so then you can read them again and see how we can work together in achieving SDGs at local level. So thank you very much. So over to Kataoka-san.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumara. And then because the time is already past 3:10, so I would like to immediately move to the segment 2, climate-related initiatives. So the moderator of the session is Mr. Emani Kumar, Ecological Deputy Secretary General and Regional Director, Ecological South Asia Secretariat. So the Mr. Kumar, floor is yours.
Thank you, Miss, and thanks for giving this opportunity. I hope I'm audible to all of you.
Yes, Kumar, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Prem Kumara. I just want to thank the Ministry of Environment, Japan, and the Department of Natural Resources Environment, the Philippines government, and the ASEAN Working Group of the Environment Sustainable Cities and the ASEAN Secretariat for giving me this opportunity to. Can I request to mute all other mics? Sorry, can I request them to mute all the mics? Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. So thanks to the organizers for giving me this opportunity for the 11th high-level seminar on sustainable cities. I'm so happy to join this particular session. My name is Imani Kumar, as introduced by the organizers. I'm the Deputy Secretary General with ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability. I'll just give you a brief introduction about my organization, maybe, and I will set the tone for the seminar. As you know, the time is too crucial in this session. We have 5 speakers in this particular session, and this is the last of the day. So I just want each and every speaker to be precise, and maybe if you can finish it off in 6 to 7 minutes, not more than that. And we will try to take up a few more questions from the audience if anybody is there. Otherwise, I will come back to all the speakers so that you can give your last statement on that. So without wasting any time, maybe I will try to set the tone for the session. This session is more on the climate-related initiatives. May I request to the organizers to maybe show the presentation of mine? Can we have the presentation? So as I said that I will talk more about my organization and also, can I have the presentation? And also the topic for this particular session. This is on the climate change and redesigning the cities. Why I'm saying the redesigning the cities is that you know the pandemic is going on for the last 9 to 10 months. So we need to respond to this. We need to recover and we need to redesign the cities on the face of the COVID-19. Next slide, please. As I said that I comes from an organization called ICLAI, Local Governments for Sustainability, which is a city association of more than 1,715 cities, nearly coming from 100 odd countries all over the world. And we impact around 25% of the global urban population. We create a systemic change in the urban areas and facilitate city to city or city to region connections to build the sustainable urban world. And we are happy that we are part of this particular workshop or the seminar on the high level segment on that. Next slide, please. Most of you, I think, since morning, I was there in the morning sessions, and people are talking about the urban issues and how they are linking to the COVID-19. But in this session, we will more talk about the climate change. And as you know, that the population in the urban population is growing like anything. And we are expecting around 70% of the urban population, global population, will live in the cities by 2050. So we as scientists or as city planners or city associates, we have a major role to address both on the climate change issues as well as on the COVID-related issues. Next slide, please. As you know that, as I said that, not only these climate change issues or biodiversity losses or the global warming issues which are happening and which people all over the world, the national governments, city governments all over the world are really looking into that. But in addition to that, you know that the COVID-19 pandemic happened for the last 9 to 10 months, and it really changed the world. Actually, as you all know that I'm sitting in Delhi in India, and I'm speaking from here, and I could not join you maybe physically in this seminar, and same with most of you people because of this COVID issues. So which has changed the world. As I said that it intensified the gap between the rich and the poor. It has really changed on the conventional development model to see that how we can work in the cities, how we can redesign the cities, keeping the socio-economic and cultural systems within the city on that. Next slide, please. On 3rd of this month, there was a meeting happened with UNFCCC and mostly the ministers from 46 countries, ministers and vice ministers who participated, really looking into the climate change issues linked to the COVID-19. And what I just want to put you is, I was reading a lot of articles, and it clearly said that maybe COVID-19 has happened. I know that it's not good for the world, but it has given us a warning that why and how we should handle other issues, including the climate change issues on that. So it's like what people are saying is it's a rehearsal for us to see the climate change issues later, which is coming, which is happening already in the world, and which is going to have an impact in the future on that. So what happened in this ministerial meeting is very good summary came up out of this meeting. They said that we stand at a critical turning point in our civilization, as the coronavirus pandemic has affected both the health and economics of the world. And our task is not to go back to the pre-pandemic world. I think this is the major point which has come from that meeting. And what they are announcing, or what they are requesting everybody, is to redesigning our socio-economic systems for a more sustainable and resilient world, actually. So that's a good and very prompt statement which has come out with that. And what is this redesign means? This redesign means 3 transitions. One is the transition of its foundation, transition to a decarbonized city, and transition to a circular economy, and transition to the socio-cultural activities on that also. and decentralized society on that. Next slide, please. So what we do as an ICLEI, local government sustainability, we encourage the cities on 5 pathways, which also link to that what the ministerial declaration has come out with. We work really looking into the low carbon emission development. We are looking into the nature-based development and equitable and people-centered development, resilient development, and circular development on that. So these 5 pathways, we are encouraging the cities to address so that the ministerial declaration, what they're talking about, decentralization and low carbon and also on the resilient development pathways on that. So what I request everybody in the world, including the cities and national governments, to look into these 5 pathways as we are developing. It's not just because we are saying this, but the ministers are also said on 3rd of this month on that. So without wasting any time, I think I have one more slide, which we have actually come out with the Sustainable Urban Development Framework. On the next slide, if you can see that, it talks about more like what we have developed a sustainable framework for Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. Next slide on that. Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand strategies, and we have developed a framework, and I will see that maybe most of those countries in IMT region will follow that on that. So with this, I stop myself in this, and I just want to take it forward with all our speakers for this session. And I'm so happy that we have very knowledgeable speakers with us. And the first speaker, I request him, Mr. Shibio Jun. He's the Deputy Director, Environmental Strategy Division of Environmental Policy Bureau, Ministry of Environment from Japan. Mr. Shibio, the floor is yours, and I request you to please finish it off within 6 to 7 minutes, sir. Mr. Shibio, the floor is yours. Can you go ahead? Your mic is muted. Yes. We can't hear you, sir. Sir, we can't hear you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Shibuya Jun, Deputy Director, Environment Strategy Division of the Ministry of the Environment in Japan. Thank you for this opportunity. I am working on the operation and support of systems related to environmental policies, such as climate change response at cities in Japan. Today, I would like to introduce to you the concept of regional circular ecological economy in Japan, a policy that we in Japan at the Ministry are trying to promote. First, the background. In 2015, as you're aware, the 2 international agreements were reached, the SDGs and Paris Agreement. 2015 was truly a transitional year, a turning point. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals are interrelated and carries the concept of multi-benefit. Both the Paris Agreement and SDGs first set out ambitious goals and backcast from there to understand what needs to be done today to achieve these goals. Amidst such developments, environmental policies need to transform the way of thinking, breaking away from the conventional mass consumption, mass waste, towards a new society. We need to think outside of the box. Currently, Japan is facing environmental, economic, and social challenges. Of course, recently, we are busy responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. But we have been facing challenges such as low fertility, aging of society, and the concentration of population in cities. It is against this background that local economies, regional economies are shattering. And because of labor shortage, forest Satoyamas will be unattended, wildlife devastated, creating more damage to habitats. Recently, Japan, like other countries, is witnessing increase in large-scale damage caused by extreme weather. A climate change trend is universal. Regional disaster preparedness is an urgent issue. We believe that climate change is a big risk to these regional economies. The issues that we need to deal with is not just the environment or economy. These issues are not isolated, but instead inseparably linked and ever more complex. Therefore, we cannot afford to just focus on the environment, but also we have to take an integrated approach so as to address at the same time social and economic issues. Against this backdrop, Japan has adopted at the cabinet the 5th Environmental Basic Plan, which spells out Japan's basic environmental policies. Here, we have set out this important new concept of circulating an ecological economy. Now, this concept, this applies to both cities and agricultural villages. Making the best use of local resources so as to become self-reliant and decentralized societies. If there are deficiencies, regions will mutually complement and support each other so that the strength of the regions can be maximized. This is the concept that we're talking about. For example, agricultural communities are witnessing a rise in problems such as population decline and aging more than in urban areas. Meanwhile, communities have diverse resources, supplying food and energy, along with beautiful natural landscape. We believe that communities should take ownership and utilize these local resources so as to become more self-reliant. And we believe that this is a very important approach to be taken. And we think that this will lead the way to building a sustainable society and taking on an integrated approach towards solving all these problems. What's important is not to rely on others, but instead the regions take ownership and the residents, government, businesses all work together to resolve these issues. Sorry? Also, I'd like to talk about Japan's zero carbon cities. This is a recent initiative. And as of September this year, 154 local governments have committed to net zero carbon emission by 2050. This is more than our national goal. In the backdrop are the devastating disasters caused by extreme weather, depletion of local resources due to climate change, and a sense of crisis. If we add up the population of all these cities, it comes to 71.19 million, more than half Japan's population. Also, these goals are more ambitious than the national goals. And we think that people are recognizing climate change as an opportunity instead of a threat, and the central government will continue to support these local initiatives. I'm afraid I've run out of time, so I'd just like to introduce one example here. This is a Japanese example of the circulating and ecological economy in Japan. This is an example of decarbonization. At Miyama City in Fukuoka Prefecture, the city has set up a new regional power company to supply solar power to households. And through this has created a lot of jobs and has revitalized the local economy. What's important is that they're using the locally sourced renewable energy to be supplied to the local businesses and households. Likewise, in Nishi-Awakura village in Okayama Prefecture on the right, they have a lot of mountains and woods in this area. And they are using this wood biomass resource to replace fossil fuel. And they are using wood biomass chips to heat so as to create new jobs, employment in the local region. In both examples, what's important is that the cities use their locally sourced resources, and this leads to not only reduction of CO2 emission, but also recovery, revitalization of the local economy, as well as addressing other local issues. I've run over time, so I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Thank you, Mr. Shibuya. Thanks for giving what Japanese cities are following. I think the point very well told by you is on the integrated approach, both on the circular economy and inclusive planning. I think that's the major point which coming out of your presentation. Thanks, and we are sorry that the time is running out on that. Next speaker, I'm happy to introduce Mr. Albert Magalang is the Chief of Climate Change Division, Environmental Management Bureau, Department of Natural Resources and Environment in the Philippines. Mr. Albert, the floor is yours, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Kumar, for introducing me, and also for the organizers of this high-level seminar, of course, including my office, for having an opportunity for us who are practitioners or climate practitioners to present so far what has been done. So, if I may have my presentation on the screen, please, or do I have the what? Can I have it? Okay. Anyway, this is just a short updates. I'd like to provide our colleagues, especially the ASEAN member states. This is about the cooling and hydrofluorocarbon, or FGFC's life cycle management assessment for ASEAN. Actually, this is the first time that ASEAN member states and even our partners from various states and non-states, state partners and non-state partners, including the NGOs and intergovernmental organizations, have come together to work on how to address air pollution, health impacts, and other local priorities in Asian cities. So on the next slide, if I may show you, we have the partners and implementing agencies for this project. Actually, this project is part of a bigger program, which, as I've mentioned, will focus on climate action while addressing air pollution, health impacts, and other priorities in the Asian cities. So basically, cities will benefit from this undertaking. So actually, the project has been developed during the high-level dialogue here in which the Philippines has hosted last year. There was a dialogue on air quality, climate, and health, and in that session, we were able to create a historic common narrative on understanding clean air, health, and climate synergy among cities within the ASEAN region. So this is part of the component of part of the three components that high-level dialogue was able to, one of the outcomes of that dialogue. So we're working closely with the ASEAN member states, the IGS, of course, Climate and Clean Air Coalition, UNEP, and the EE Solutions Incorporated, giving us technical advice on how to work on this cooling and HFC life cycle management assessment. On the next slide, as I mentioned, this is one of the initiatives, of the many initiatives of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, wherein most of the countries, especially Japan, IGES, and other organizations are members. So the coalition is a voluntary partnership of governments. How many governments do we have? 70 state partners, 76 non-state partners, and of course coming from various NGOs, totaling to 58 NGOs and 18 intergovernmental organizations, including the civil society organizations globally. So locally, the coalition is committed to improve air quality and protecting the climate through actions to reduce short-lived climate pollutants. HFC and efficient cooling are two of the initiatives under this program. On the next slide, if I may introduce some narratives about efficient cooling. So this would give us the overall objective to catalyze action on efficient cooling to double the climate benefit of the Kigali Amendment on hydrofluorocarbons face down alone. So, this will double. I mean, in fact, it will contribute 0.5 degrees centigrade decrease in the total average, global average on climate, as expressed in the long-term goal of the Paris Agreement, the 1.5 degrees centigrade climate limit, global temperature limit. And there are projections that emissions from air conditioning and refrigeration are expected to rise 90% from 2017 levels, and 30% improvement would be realized in energy efficiency if we have to phase down HFCs. Next slide. And on the HFC, as I've mentioned, so this initiative targets governments and the private sector to address rapidly HFC emissions. As we all know, HFC is several thousands of, in terms of global warming potential. It has a very significant contribution to greenhouse gas emission. So which could, as you see in the slide, which could account for as much as 19% of carbon dioxide emissions by 2050 if left unchecked. So on the next slide, as I mentioned, we have this historic project on working at these gases, on these substances, which are short-lived climate pollutants. So it's an initiative that will basically address climate change. So The objectives of this initiative by ASEAN member states is to assess the needs, gaps, opportunities of efficient cooling, including life cycle management of hydrofluorocarbons or the HFCs, and also to study and propose recommendations on how the ASEAN community as well as individual ASEAN member states could work together to reduce this emission. And then the next slide, we have the target stakeholders. It's a multi-stakeholder kind of initiative, wherein we will be engaging government and non-government organizations, especially with, of course, with the assistance from IGES and from other member states and other organizations like the international organization that I have listed down here. And on the next slide, okay, this is the implementation plan. So we're going to come up with an assessment report on how are we going to have this initiative on the ground. So these are some of the ongoing activities under the implementation plan, which the ASEAN member states are working at. So there will be an engagement of the other working group on sustainable cities. So the next slide. That's all. Thank you. Thank you so much for your attention. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Albert. I think this is very much important for not only ASEAN countries, but all over the world. I think in the global north, maybe they talk about more on the heat action plans. I think we talk about more on the cooling action plans, and HFC is the main contributor to that. Thanks for your presentation, and all the best for all the Asian countries, including you Philippines, to implement the action plan and maybe come out with the results once you start implementing of the action plan on that. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Our next speaker is Mr. Michigami Rutaro, who is the Deputy Director for International Cooperation Environmental Bureau of Osaka City, Japan. Mr. Michigami, the floor is yours, sir.
Michigami is my name. Can you hear me? I'm from Osaka Department of Environment. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak. So from my side, I'd like to report to you about the Osaka City Action Plan for Global Warming Countermeasures. In 2002, we established this action plan. And ever since, we have been updating, and currently we are in the process of amendment for 2020. This is Osaka against the map of Japan, and this is the city of Osaka. It's 225 square kilometers, and the population is 2.7 million, and the gross regional production is $185 billion. So from here onward, I would like to talk about current action plan, which was amended in March of 2017, and its progress. And also, I would like to mention approach to amendment that we are going to carry out for 2020 by covering these 5 items. First, regarding the current plan, this is the current plan. And the target is to reduce GHG gas emission by 5% or more compared with 2013 by 2020. And by 2030, we reduce 30%, which is above the target of the national government. And regarding the progress so far, Osaka's GHG gas emission volume was 18.84 million tons in 2017, which was 10.7% less than that of 2013. So the target of achieving 5% or more reduction by 2020 was already achieved. Here, I would like to talk about the CFC alternatives. which we discovered during the course of our projects. Vis-a-vis total GHG gas emission, CFC accounts for a very small portion, but it's on the rise. And we expect this trend to continue going forward. And therefore, even as of current situation, we need to make sure we recover and destruct or destroy CFC alternatives for sure. And now, this is the direction in revising the plan. We think the climate change is making abnormal climate event more frequently, and people are paying more attention to disaster risks. And as a result of long-term strategy under the Paris Agreement, the concrete actions are accelerated here in Japan to be introduced. And therefore, we think we need to achieve zero emission or net zero emission of CO2 as soon as possible. So those are the awareness. And also against that, we would like to strengthen mitigation measures. And also we want to enrich our adaptation measures to avoid and lessen the damage by climate change. And also we need to achieve net zero emission of CO2 by 2050. And we want to have integrated improvement of society and economy altogether throughout our global warming countermeasures. And also we want to take account of new normal. City of Osaka has a zero carbon Osaka as a concept to become zero carbon in 2050, while we shoot for growth. So the orange portion is the current CO2 emissions. By reducing energy consumption and to have more renewable energy introduction, we want to go to this green area of CO2 emission by 2030. And then we do further efforts to reduce emission. And by 2050, we want to reach this blue area of CO2 emission to minimize the emission, that is. However, it's almost difficult to reduce zero emission from non-energy derived GHG, and therefore we do some programs outside of the city in order to become net zero of CO2 emission. And also, whatever we do, we will incorporate climate change adaptation approach. This is one example of our activities. PV or other renewable energies are to be introduced more. Water cooling and heating system that use aquifer thermal storage is another effort that we are doing. And also we want to introduce and expand use of hydrogen or other energy. And also we want to have more utilization of EV and FCVs. Now, towards 2050 zero carbon Osaka, we want to utilize following milestones, such as Osaka Cancer Expo of 2025 and SDG target year of 2030. And also by sharing the vision for 2050, we want to do more international collaboration and introduction of innovations. And whatever we can do, we want to do so that we can make our city decarbonized. And we want to be a city that innovates environmental aspects to avoid the climate crisis. So that's all I wanted to share with you regarding the action plan. However, I want to talk about our relations with Quezon City of Philippines. Quezon and Osaka signed a comprehensive memorandum of understanding in order to help each other for climate issues. The Quezon and Osaka will work together so that Quezon will be the decarbonized city in a very friendly manner. And the activities are listed in the previous slide. And as for this year, we were to carry out feasibility studies of JCM facility subsidies in order to make Quezon City low carbon society. If this is possible, this can be adopted as JCM model project. And together with other cities, we want to penetrate this project with other cities as well. So not limited to this particular project, we would like to do more international collaboration and contribution. That's all from Osaka City. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Michigami, for giving us the Osaka action plan and also the city-to-city partnership. And if you good to know that I hope Quezon City as implementing a good GHG action plan, and you can take it to all over the world, other cities also, maybe at least in ASEAN countries. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for your presentation. Our next speaker is Ms. Ernie Pelita. She is the head of Environmental Management and Cleanliness of Environmental Management Agency, Jakarta City. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Emani Kumar. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, many thanks for Ministry of Environment Japan, and the second, Department of Environment, Natural Resources, the Philippines, and then ASEAN Working Group on Sustainable Cities, which inviting Jakarta Province to share initiative Jakarta to address climate change impact. I apologize to present in Bahasa, and Pak Toto from IJES will help me to be interpreter. Next. Ya, ini outline dari paparan Jakarta terkait dengan inisiatif Jakarta dalam pengendalian dampak perubahan iklim.
This is the content of my presentation today.
Next. Kondisi Jakarta bisa dilihat dalam presentasi ini bahwa Jakarta seluas 662,33 km persegi dengan jumlah penduduk di malam hari itu sekitar 10 juta. Sementara di siang hari itu jumlah penduduk atau populasi bisa mencapai 13 juta. Ini karena ada komuter dari daerah-daerah penyangga ibu kota Jakarta.
So this is the condition of Jakarta. The land area about 662 kilometers square, and the population in the daytime is about 13 million, and in the nighttime about 10 million because of the commuting people.
Jakarta sudah mengalami dampak perubahan iklim. Bisa kita lihat dalam slide sebagai berikut. 1 Januari 2020 terjadi banjir. Kemudian kondisi kualitas udara yang signifikan tercemar. Kemudian kekeringan sekitar Agustus 2018 di sekitar Tanah Abang. Kemudian kenaikan muka air laut tahun 2018, dan ini memang sudah sering terjadi di DKI Jakarta.
We already faced the problem from the climate change. First about the flood in January 2020, and also air pollution last year, and also drought 2 years ago, and also sea level rise 2 years ago.
Komitmen Jakarta dalam pengendalian dampak perubahan iklim dimulai dari sejak tahun 2007 sampai dengan saat ini. 2007, Pemprov DKI Jakarta sudah bergabung dengan C40. Kemudian tahun 2019 melaunching komitmen untuk menurunkan emisi gas rumah kaca sebesar 30% di tahun 2030 dalam sidang COP di Denmark. Kemudian 2012 kami menetapkan peraturan gubernur terkait dengan rencana aksi daerah penurunan emisi gas rumah kaca nomor 131 tahun 2012. Kemudian 2016 kami juga sudah menyusun Grand Design Green Building terkait dengan penurunan penggunaan air, energi, kemudian juga konsumsi emisi gas rumah kaca di building sebesar 30% tahun 2030. Tahun 2018, Gubernur DKI Jakarta bersama dengan C40 menandatangani kesepakatan bersama untuk menyusun Climate Action Plan yang selesai insya Allah di tahun 2020 akhir. 2019 kami melakukan kaji ulang terhadap rencana aksi daerah penurunan emisi gas rumah kaca yang insya Allah 2020 ini akan ditetapkan dengan peraturan gubernur.
Okay, so this is the commitment of Jakarta City. Jakarta City commit to the for the climate change from 2007 by joining the C40, and then we also set the target for GHG emission reduction 30% in 2030 during the COP in Denmark. After that, the government issued some policy and some regulation, especially, for example, on regional action plan in 2012 and a green building in 2016, and also like developing action plan together with C40 in 2018, and also revise the policy on green building in 2019, which will be launched this year.
Beberapa kebijakan dan regulasi terkait dengan dampak perubahan iklim Jakarta.
So
Jadi, ya, kami menetapkan pengendalian dampak perubahan iklim di dalam rencana tata ruang wilayah yang ditetapkan dengan peraturan daerah. Peraturan daerah nomor 1/2012 ini antara eksekutif dan legislatif. Kemudian diturunkan dalam RPJMD atau Rencana Pembangunan Jangka Menengah Daerah, juga ditetapkan dengan peraturan daerah. Kemudian tadi peraturan Gubernur 131/2012 tentang rencana aksi daerah penurunan emisi gas rumah kaca. Kemudian salah satu aksinya ditetapkan dengan instruksi gubernur terkait dengan program kampung iklim. Dan yang lebih menjadi konsentrasi gubernur adalah penetapan mitigasi dan adaptasi bencana iklim dalam kegiatan strategis daerah yang ditetapkan dengan keputusan gubernur nomor 1107/2019.
So we have the regulation and policy from the spatial planning in 2012, number 1, 2012, which we then break it down into the regional planning of the city and also action plan in 2012, and also some kind of like a climate village in 2017, and also the most important is on the mitigation and climate adaptation. This will in 2019.
Pengendalian dampak perubahan iklim DKI Jakarta dilakukan melalui 2 program, yaitu mitigasi dan adaptasi perubahan iklim. Untuk kegiatan mitigasi ini ada diterbitkan atau payung hukum secara nasional, yaitu Peraturan Presiden tentang Rencana Aksi Nasional Penurunan Emisi Gas Rumah Kaca. Sementara untuk inventarisasinya dilakukan dengan payung hukum Peraturan Presiden 71, dan ini kami turunkan serta kami lakukan implementasi dan dilaporkan setiap tahun oleh Pemprov DKI Jakarta ke Kementerian Lingkungan Hidup dan ke Bappenas. Sementara kalau untuk adaptasi ini kami hanya memiliki kegiatan program kampung iklim, dan untuk rencana aksi daerah adaptasi perubahan iklim belum ada payung yang ditetapkan secara nasional.
So we use the national guideline to make a synergy or integration between national planning and city planning and also regional planning on the mitigation especially. However, in the adaptation, there is no big umbrella in the national level.
Nah, ini hasil inventarisasi emisi gas rumah kaca DKI Jakarta setiap tahun, dan 2018 itu dihasilkan sekitar 57 juta ton CO2 ekuivalen, di mana yang terbesar dihasilkan dari kegiatan electricity sebesar 48,93%. Kemudian diikuti oleh penggunaan bahan bakar secara langsung 33,48%. Selanjutnya power plant, kemudian sampah dan avolu. Nah, silakan Pak Tato.
So this is the actual emission in Jakarta in 2018, about 57 million ton, which is mostly come from the power generation, about 48%, about from electricity, and also from the direct emission from the fuel, about 33.5%.
Nah, untuk mitigasi yang sudah dilakukan sampai dengan 2018, kami sudah mencapai 9 juta ton atau sekitar 26,51% dari 35 juta ton CO2 di tahun 2030. Jadi kami masih punya target yang harus dicapai sebesar 73,49%. Nah, ini akan dilakukan melalui aksi-aksi dari berbagai sektor, yaitu energi, kemudian sektor limbah, kemudian Avolu dan Avolu. Dan dari berbagai sektor ini terinci menjadi berbagai aksi, yaitu efisiensi energi, biofuel, busway, ITS, kereta, busway, kemudian feeder maksud saya, kemudian public street lighting, kemudian gas ya, kemudian termasuk juga building-building. Kemudian yang di sektor sampah itu ada 3R, kemudian ITF, kemudian pengolahan air limbah.
So in 2018 we can only achieve about 9 million ton, which is only 26.5% of the target, about 35 million ton. So this can be achieved through the several activities on energy sector, and also waste sector. So and also Avolu sector, but Avolu sector is very small.
Small, ya. Yeah. Nah, ini untuk capaian reduksi emisi gas rumah kaca di tahun 2018 sekitar 9 juta ton. Ini dihasilkan terbesar dari efisiensi power plant atau pembangkit sekitar 7 juta. 7.673 ton CO2 equivalent.
Yeah, so this is the reduction in 2018, which is mostly come from in the power sector.
Okay. Nah, ini 7 inisiatif dari pengendalian kualitas udara yang mendukung penurunan emisi gas rumah kaca. Ya, dengan ekspansi public transport ya melalui electrification dari BRT atau Transjakarta, kemudian expansion dari infrastruktur yang mendukung non-motorized, kemudian pengetatan dalam baku mutu industri dan emisi kendaraan bermotor, kemudian dari expansion ruang terbuka hijau, kemudian pengembangan dari energi baru terbarukan serta low emission zones.
So this is several initiative which has a co-benefit on the air pollution and also GHG emission. All are explained in English, so you can read this presentation and we can move.
Ini dokumentasi ya yang mendukung aksi-aksi mitigasi.
So this is the mitigation in energy sector, green sector.
Terima kasih kepada IJES yang bekerja sama dengan ITB dalam menyusun strategi low carbon emission di DKI Jakarta sampai dengan 2050.
So we also have developed an action plan for 2050.
Ya, kegiatan ini mendukung DKI Jakarta untuk percepatan pencapaian penurunan emisi gas rumah kaca.
So this help to Jakarta City Government to speed up the reduction of GHG emission.
Ini untuk tahun 2030 bisa dilihat bahwa penurunan emisi gas rumah kaca yang disusun oleh IJES dan ITB ini sebesar 32 juta ton. Ya, atau 30,33% dari 106 juta ton. Yang terbesar dihasilkan dari biofuel mandatory in transportation, yaitu sekitar 7.728 ton.
So this is the target in 2013 that we can achieve about 30%, and which is mostly come from the biofuel mandatory on transportation about 7.7.
Ya, sementara untuk tahun 2050 itu sebesar 55 juta ton, atau 29,23% dari 189 juta ton CO2. Yang terbesar itu dihasilkan dari aksi regulasi dan sertifikasi green building untuk gedung-gedung komersial sebesar 14.938.
In 2050, we can also achieve a target about 30% reduction, mostly come from the green building, which is about 14.9 million ton CO2.
Nah, ini sedangkan untuk adaptasi program, kami banyak melibatkan unsur dari masyarakat, sekolah ya dalam program Kampung Iklim, program Adiwiyata, Bank Sampah, tadi yang sudah disampaikan oleh Pak Nofrizal, serta Samtama. Samtama ini suatu program kerjasama antara pemerintah dan masyarakat bahwa sampah merupakan tanggung jawab bersama.
So for the adaptation, there is an involvement from the community, first for the program or climate village, and also Adiwiyata from the school, Waste Bank, which is already explained in the morning by Mr. Nofrizal, and also Samtama, like waste as our responsibility.
Nah, ini bisa dilihat dokumentasi proklim pelibatan masyarakat dalam pelaksanaan mitigasi dan adaptasi bencana iklim. Jadi hal-hal kecil yang dilakukan masyarakat.
So this is some picture of activities in the community.
Yeah. Kemudian ini sekolah dalam program Adiwiyata.
So this is activities in school for Adiwiyata.
Ya, kemudian ini masih di Adiwiyata.
This is
Kemudian
also
ini
school.
bank sampah.
This is the waste bank activities.
Ya, kemudian ini untuk kegiatan Samtama. Jadi ada beberapa inisiatif yang dilakukan dalam kerangka pengurangan sampah di sumber.
So this is Samtama, the waste reduction from the source.
Baik, terima kasih banyak. Ini yang bisa saya sampaikan. Kurang lebihnya mohon maaf. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih Pak Toto.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am, for presenting Jakarta's GHG emission reduction plan, and I condemn the work what you are doing already. All the best for achieving all the targets. Good to know that you are progressing well on your action plans. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Emani Kumar.
Thank you, ma'am. We have our last but not least the speaker, Dr. Kong Sang he's the Chief Research Fellow from the Korea Environmental Institute, KEI. Dr. Kang, the floor is yours, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kumar, and good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Sang Kang from Korea Environmental Institute. And then it's my pleasure to share the CJK joint work on low carbon sustainable cities. It has been done so far by the NCSC, NIGS, and KI, a joint work program. And the reference of our joint work comes from the recently rising recognition of non-party stakeholders under UNFCCC, local government, cities, communities, and NGOs. And in 2015, Article 12 of the Paris Agreement talk about the public engagement, emphasizing the advanced role of local government, including cities and villages, right? Then there was an international initiative, global initiatives for local actions. And for example, the Global Covenant of Mayors, comprised of 9,000 cities all over the world, are trying to develop their own local action plans and to implement them. And these are the reference of our joint work among China, Japan, and Korea. And there was a preparatory work for this joint work in 2017 in Beijing. At the time, Japan and China and Korea joined this meeting. And there are several brainstorming works on it as a preparatory work on September 2017. And then we organized also a pre-technical meeting with the Global Green Growth Institute, IGS, and KI. KI joined this tripartite joint work from that time. And this program is to focus on the summarize the best practice of CJK cities, learn each other among cities and beyond, and guide cities in the world based on our lessons learned. And then this program became a part of a joint work program under the tripartite ministerial meetings since June 2018. And then the ministers welcomed the preparatory work done to date and agreed on launching the joint research on cities toward decarbonization and sustainable development in 2018. And then we organized the first workshop in Beijing, October 2018, and the second joint workshop was held in Yokohama, July 2019. At the time, we invited UNESCAP Northeast Asian Office to give some ideas on their perspectives. And then these are the good practice toward decarbonization and sustainability publication. This publication presented the major output from the joint research program in the 2018 and 2019. So it is expected that the CJK joint study outcome could help officers in charge of local climate actions in the Asian Pacific cities and communities, right? there are several examples. For example, Shenzhen is trying to find the synergy from CO2 and the PM 2.5 management. And then Kyoto City set their own quantitative approach, including the GHG emission trend and target by 2050. And in the case of Gwangju Metropolitan City in Korea, they are developing impact and vulnerability assessment modeling to support the science-based policy decision-making. And then we identify the 4 key elements of success from our case studies. The first one is the science-based approach comes first. And then second one is the stakeholders engagement proves essential. And we note that horizontal collaboration within local government is very much important to assure the strategy, budget, planning, and role sharing. And finally, we think it is very necessary to get a co-benefit of local climate action. So intersectoral synergy for energy, water, sustainable urban infra, community development, etc. And this slide shows the major milestones from 2018 and 2021. So we are now in the September of 2020. We are to organize the 3rd joint research workshop in Cheongju, Korea next month, in November, in the occasion of the TEM 22. And we will organize next year preparatory workshop for next cycle of joint study. And these outcomes will be reported to TEM 23rd and COP 26. We are thinking to organize a side event. So as a future plan of CJK joint study framework, we want to continue to work with cities and colleagues institute in the Asia and the Pacific with the renewed program. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for giving us the actions, what you are taking, and with other collaborators. I think it is a rich information what we have collected in the last 1 hour, from starting from the Ministry of Japan and also the Philippines Department of Natural Resources and Osaka City and Jakarta City, and finally with our research partners, Korea Environmental Institute. Thanks a lot. Though I want to take up question and answer sessions, but I think we have already crossed 10 minutes of our allocated time. Not just only the allocated time for question and answers, the entire session. I think we have crossed 10 minutes over. So I just want to thank each and every participant. We are not taking up any question and answers right now. It's already 4 o'clock in Japan and also 3 o'clock in maybe Philippines, though I have, I'm still at only lunchtime, before lunchtime here in India. But thank you. Thanks a lot to all the participants for giving us very rich information. And I hope the cities will continue their activities, will address the climate change issues, as you have already mentioned, Osaka and Jakarta, and also all the other ministries, national governments, and research institutions to support the city governments, because we want to see a more climate resilient cities in the world, and we are happy to take it forward on that. So with this, I just want to again thank all the participants, thank all the speakers and panelists, and thanks from my side, and also thanks from the organizer side. And I will hand it over back to the organizers to close the session and close for the day. Thank you. Thanks a lot. And all these presentations will be available on the drive, which has been told by the organizers. So if you have any questions to the participant, from the participants to the speakers, you can take it forward on that. Thank you. Thanks again. Thank you. Back to the organizers.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kamal. So this is the end of the presentation, the end of the today's session. Thank you very much for your participation. For the tomorrow this high-level seminar will continue. And then the session will start at 9 o'clock Manila in the morning and 10 o'clock in Tokyo. So please join us again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is the end of the session. Thank you very much for the moderators, panelists. Thank you very much. Goodbye.